Live, eh? It has been a while. I'm very excited to be bringing back my lives. I didn't go live as early as I wanted to. I wanted to do it this morning, but I got stuck doing some content marketing. So yeah, putting together my book, which is very, very exciting. So let me know if you're live, hashtag live. Let me know if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. And I thought that I would start off this live series, which I'm committing to doing the rest of this month, going live, but also I would like to be doing it for longer. So I'm committing to 30 days, not including weekends, but I'm committing to 30 days. However, I get so much pleasure from going live that actually I would like to do it indefinitely. But it's one of those things, right? And I don't know if you ever feel the same way, but when you do something every single day, you get into momentum, you get into this habit. And it's great because you're like, right, I need to go live, I need to do this. And it's in your diary and you're doing it and it's repeatable and you get into some kind of rhythm. But if you do it intermittently, so once a week or once every couple of weeks, you get out of rhythm and all of a sudden it's a month, then it's 2 months, then it's 3 months since you've been live. And that's kind of what's happened to me. So I am committing to showing up every weekday, which actually is only really Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for me because I don't work Mondays or Fridays. However, I will show up on Mondays and Fridays as well. Fingers crossed. I'm committing to it now. I'm sharing with you guys that I'm doing it. But yeah, we're talking all things advisory and moving from a compliance practice into an advisory-led practice. And today I want to answer probably the most requested question or the most requested answer, the question I get the most, which is, what exactly do I do as a business advisor? And really, it's not you giving advice, it's about you having conversations. So I'm going to share with you what I actually call the transformation framework. And I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 conversations that you should be having with your clients as a business advisor. Now, some of those conversations are going to be seeming quite easy for you. And you'll be like, oh, I didn't realize it was that easy. And some of them might stretch you a little bit, which is why you need to purposely sit down and go, how are you going to show up as a business advisor? All right. So let me just share my screen. And this is the transformation framework that I was talking to you about. And this is about the fact that we have 3 conversations that happen in every single business. I'm just going to move me up there. So the first conversation is the money conversation. And this is very much where you're comfortable, right? You're used to having the money conversation. You're used to having the numbers in front of you and you own this. This is everything that you should be doing as a business advisor. However, there's a couple of other conversations that you need to be thinking about having, and I'm going to give you some examples as well so that you don't feel really overwhelmed. But the next conversation that you need to be having is actually what we call the strategy conversation. And I'll give you some examples of strategy questions and conversations that you can have in a moment, but you should own this conversation. Now, I'm not turning you into a strategist. I'm not saying to you that you need to help people create their vision for their business and come up with a vision statement and a mission statement, although if you did, that would make you highly valuable. But I'm talking about asking the right questions and having the right conversation. So you've got the money conversation, you've got the strategy conversation, and then the third conversation is what we call the future conversation. And this is the conversation that you need to own. So you need to be having future conversations with your clients and you need to be having the money conversations, which you already own, okay? Now, the strategy conversation is a little bit kind of, do you have to do it? No, you don't have to do it, but you will be super valuable if you do. And if you are super valuable, then people will pay you handsomely for your services. So that's what we have to remember is if we can get these 3 conversations going with your clients, then the value of you goes up, which means that people will pay you more. Now, the reason why the value goes up is because the conversations that you are having are transformational. And if you transform your clients' lives, they are going to pay you handsomely for the favor. Okay, so let me go back to my screen because I'm going to give you some examples of what kind of questions you have to ask for each of these different areas. So the first one is the money conversation. So the money conversation is where you're already the authority, but you actually need to shift from where you're the authority from reporting to advising. So this is where you ask questions like, based on your current numbers, what worries you most about the next 12 months? Now, Have you asked your clients that? Whether or not you're charging for advisory, you should be asking that question, because that's what I can call compliance plus, which is compliance plus customer service. I think that's a very basic question to ask your clients. It's not a difficult question. You don't have to do anything to actually help them with that. But if you don't ask that question, you are literally doing your clients a disservice. So I actually call that question a compliance plus question, not an advisory question. Then we've got slightly more idea opening questions. So these are things like, if cash wasn't a constraint, what would you invest in first? This gets people to kind of get rid of all the baggage that they have and say, you know what, if I had all the money in all the world, this is what I would do. And it gets them to do the big picture thinking, and it actually shows them what the way forward is for their overcoming their problems. Okay. Now, again, you don't have to do that for them. You don't have to say to them, right, if you want to invest in marketing, I'm going to do your marketing for you. That's not what you're doing as the advisor. What we're doing is opening up their thinking so you can help them come up with ideas. Now let's think about this question. What's the most expensive business mistake you've made in the last year? And I ask you that question. What's the most expensive business mistake you've made in the last year? Okay. Which part of your business is actually losing you money right now? That's a really good question, because you have the answer to that. But what you're trying to do is show your clients how to think to help themselves in their business. So one of the things that I always say is that you need to teach your clients to fish, not give them a fish. So where I said which part of your business is actually losing you money right now, you're teaching your clients how to think about money and to think about their business. And if you teach someone to fish, you'll feed them for a lifetime. If you give them something, if you give them a fish, you're feeding them just for that meal. So if you give them the answers, you're not actually going to be helping them to develop as business owners. All right. And then let me just go back here. If we could improve one financial metric by 10%, which would make the biggest difference? Well, that's a really good question, right? So then you would say to them, is it going to be your take-home pay? Is it going to be your dividends? Is it going to be your profits? Is it going to be your overheads? Is it going to be this one line cost you wish that you could get rid of, or you could increase by 10%? This is conversations. And these money conversations are pretty easy for you to have, because you can look at the numbers and ask them and guide your clients. Okay. So that's the first conversation that you absolutely need to master. Now, the second conversation I mentioned was the strategy conversation. Okay. So when we're talking about the strategy conversation, this is where we translate numbers into strategic insights. So this isn't, as I said, this isn't about helping them with a vision and mission statement, although that is super helpful. But what I'm talking about here is having a look and going, right, what are the questions that we could ask clients that will really change their situation? So what 3 things need to happen this year for you to feel successful? Now, if I'm having that conversation with you, when I ask you that question, your thinking will probably go straight to your gut. So what 3 things need to happen this year for you to feel successful? When I ask it, you go, oh, okay. And you go deep into your inside, okay? And when you ask questions like that to clients, what happens is you change their state. Instead of going, oh my gosh, life is awful, they're like, well, what action do I need to take to actually feel successful? Because it's a feeling. So the feeling is going to be not in their head, it's going to be in their body. So that's a really powerful question to ask them. Which part of your business deserves more attention but keeps getting ignored? Again, a strategy conversation, not one where you need to be a strategist, but a strategy conversation that's thinking about those big picture things, okay? And then here's another one. What are your competitors doing that keeps you awake at night? So this, if they then come back and go, oh, well, I don't know, well, you need to go, well, you need to look at your competitive landscape. So let's have a look and see what your competitors are doing, because it might spark ideas or it might give you confidence that you're absolutely smashing it. Sometimes you need to look around you to see where you're at in the game. And that's a really good question to help them. Okay. So once we've done the money conversation and the strategy conversation, We then need to move on to the future conversation. And this is where you become indispensable. So if you're able to ask questions around the future, this is where you are positioning yourself as an absolute vital advisor. So vital stands for valuable, impactful, trusted, agile, and lucrative. So they see you as valuable, you're making an impact, you're building trust with your clients, you're agile, so you're showing them that you can move with the times, and then lucrative is you can make or save them money. So let me just share with you some ideas around that. This is where you can earn the really big fees, okay? So one of the questions is, what does your business need to look like in 3 years to support your personal goals? My accountant has never asked me this question, and my personal goal is, of course, to pay off my mortgage. If you've got 200 clients, how many of your clients do you know what their 3-year goal is? Okay, do you know what the 3-year goal is for your clients? It's imperative that you know that, because otherwise all advice that you give them could be wrong. The money advice, okay, the money conversation, the strategy conversation, both of those completely wrong if you don't have this future conversation. All right. What's the biggest risk to your business that we haven't discussed yet? Getting them to think big picture. Okay. If you could restructure your business from scratch, what would you do differently? And this is what I specialize in, right? I specialize in taking you from running a bloated team, overworked, compliance-based business into what I call a freedom business, which is high revenue, very high take-home pay, and working less hours. So 10 hours a week in client delivery. So that's where, if you could restructure your business from scratch, what would you do differently? That's kind of where I help you guys, right? So the money conversation is imperative. The strategy conversation is a really good one to have, but the future conversation is the one where you become indispensable. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, because so often you are fearful about how to show up as a business advisor. You're not even sure what a business advisor does. You've just been told by people like me that you need to be an advisor. You also think that as a business advisor, you need to just talk around the numbers, and that's not true. Okay. Talking around the numbers just makes you compliant plus. Okay. So compliance plus is where you're doing the work for your clients and you're helping them a bit. But what you need to do is get them to think big picture and to help them plan in accordance with what it is that they want. So you need to know what they want personally and what they want with their business. And they're the 3 conversations that you need to be having. So let me just share that with you one more time. So we've got here the transformation framework, which is the money conversation, which you own already. You know what you're doing with that. And if you don't know what you're doing with that, then you need to do some work on it. Okay. The strategy conversation, you should own this. It would be really good if you owned it. And the future conversation, you need to own this. And the transformation framework is something that we help you implement, and is just a very small part of our business advisory certification program. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, then drop me a message. But for now, I've got a webinar tomorrow, which takes you from compliance to advisory. So do join me on that. There's a link around here that you can sign up on. And if you're interested in value pricing of advisory services, then download the value pricing toolkit. The link for that is also attached to this video. Now, the value pricing toolkit is a phenomenal toolkit to show you how to price based on the value that you deliver. All right. And if you are worried about your value and you're nervous that you don't know what your value is and you don't know how to uncover it, then I'm your girl. All right. Thank you for joining me today. First of many going lives. I already feel better. I really miss doing them. They give me energy. They're one of the things that I enjoy more than anything. That and doing my webinars and my podcasts are my favorite things. So I could sit and do like 5 lives a day once I get into the methodology. But yeah, great to catch up with you. If you've watched this live, let me know, #live. If you're watching the replay, #replay. And if you would like any support around business advisory, then please just send me a message on LinkedIn or reach out to me and I can support you and answer any questions you have. Thanks for joining me today. If you've got this far, I really appreciate it. And I'll catch up with you all soon. Have a great